now when we're dealing with this book here, we are so different. How is it possible? Because a lot of the things that, like you were saying, a lot of things that us men do to relax are the very things that drive the women crazy.
That's right.
You know, because you're likely to come home and just, you know, I've had a long day, and the less people that talk to me, the better. And that's not the case with women.
That's right. And if you can now, we see this, and so women often will make the mistake of thinking, well, he doesn't want to talk to me because he doesn't love me or doesn't care about me. Or let's say she's a little bit more extreme. She thinks that, oh, he doesn't want to talk to me because he needs therapy. He wasn't hugged enough when he was a child or something like that. And if we could just understand that the brains are different. Chapter 2 of my new book, I really show that how our brains are hardwired to be different. In very simple terms, it's not that complicated to explain, in that there's a stress center in a man's brain. It's twice as big as in a woman's. And for a man, it's wired up to action. So as long as there's something a man can do about something, there will be blood flow and energy in his brain. But if there's nothing he can do about it, then literally he wants to rest and regenerate his energies. Whereas for women, when there is moderate stress, now this is very interesting. For men, it has to be high stress to activate the stress center. For women, it has to be just moderate stress that a man wouldn't even notice to a certain extent. There's 8 times more blood flow in a woman's brain to the emotional part of the brain. That means she suddenly becomes alarmed. She becomes distressed. There's alarm bells that are going off. Now, keep in mind that her brain is still saying it's moderate stress, but the tone of her voice is like, you know, the tone of a man's voice if it was 10 times the stress. So men often misinterpret women's emotional reactions to be overreactions when really she's just having a normal reaction, but she will feel the need to tell everybody about it, or at least to tell him about it, because in her brain, this emotional part of the brain is wired up to the talking part of the brain. And if she talks about what's bothering her, or the emotions that she's feeling have a chance to be expressed through her tone of voice and to someone who cares, then what will happen is the brain will stimulate. That behavior of talking about feelings stimulates the production of serotonin, a brain chemical, a neurotransmitter that we're all familiar with now, which is associated with feeling good. Well, serotonin is necessary to be produced in the brain to wash over the emotional part of the brain and calm it down again. So she becomes distressed, and then the serotonin gets produced and relaxes her. You know, the last thing she needs is a man to say, calm down. The last thing she needs is for a man to say, don't worry about it, it's not a problem.
Which is most likely the first thing he's going to say.
That's right, because when men hear there's a problem, we immediately go, okay, do I need to take action on it? And if he goes, well, there's nothing you can do about it, then he wants to tell her to forget it. Don't worry about it.
Right. Why on earth would you be talking about it if you don't want to do anything about it?
That's the man's point of view, because men would primarily, we use language as a way to gather information to solve problems, or to give information to solve problems, whereas for women, they can use language for that reason, but they can also primarily use language as a way to communicate distress, emotional reactions, feelings of frustration, concern, worry, anticipation, resistance, anger. These kinds of feelings towards life is her internal world. And when a woman feels seen and heard, then this hormone, oxytocin, also gets produced, and that lowers her stress values. When she's able to communicate those feelings, serotonin gets produced in her brain, and that also relaxes the brain part of her. So this is like relationships becomes a key way for women to cope most effectively with stress. And
we got to go to break. You all are breaking my instant feedback. There's tons of questions. I will definitely get to some. We're speaking with Dr. John Gray. He's the author of Mars and Venus. His website is marsvenus.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Empowered Living Life, the Truth, and Being Free. I'm your host, Steve Maraboli. For more information about A Better Today, our speeches, programs, seminars, and live event schedule, please visit abettertoday.com or stevemaraboli.com. And don't forget, the home of this radio show is empoweredlivingradio.com. You'll have all the information on the guests and archive shows to every single show we've ever done. Is available at empoweredlivingradio.com. And also you can check out these shows on iTunes, as well as my 15-minute empowerment blog on Blog Talk Radio is also available on iTunes, and that information is also on empoweredlivingradio.com. We have an amazing show today. Dr. John Gray, he's the internationally recognized expert in the fields of communication and relationship. He's the author of 15 best-selling books, including Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. You guys are blowing up my instant feedback. I got to get to some of this, John. Do you mind?
Go right ahead.
Okay, got everything from how do I get my husband to get his butt off the couch? Let's start there.
Well,
she comes home from work,
yep,
and she's overwhelmed. He's sitting on the couch, happier than a pig in mud, and you know something's going to happen.
Well, see, this is the idea that women don't realize, which is they think that something's wrong with him doing that. That's what he needs to do, and she's not recognizing what she needs to do to be happy. And, of course, she says, well, all this has to be handled. And that's her mind telling her she has to do that. And without a doubt, things have to get done and so forth. And it's more wonderful when she gets help to do that. But he's usually too exhausted to do it. And if he just gets up and starts doing it, I've helped men come home and start helping women. Now you've got two exhausted people. So what I've learned to do is to recognize the physiology of both men and women is that when their hormones are getting the support they need, they have twice as much energy. So the problem today is stress, not each other, and we have twice as much energy if we can lower stress. This is physiological. That means when your cortisol levels are elevated, you can't burn fat for energy, and fat gives you twice as much energy. Women's bodies have 20 to 25% more fat cells to store extra energy. If their stress levels are low, then they've got an abundance of energy. So I've got a whole book. There's not just one little thing you can say to your husband to get him off the couch, as if I wish there was one thing I could say to you so that you wouldn't be upset with him that he's on the couch, or that you wouldn't be so overwhelmed. If you weren't so overwhelmed, there'd be no problem that he's sitting on the couch. In my house, I come home, I sit down on the couch. My wife's very happy for me to be there. She knows that's what I'm needing, and she is very happy. That's the key. And if she's under distress that day, she can ask for my help. I get up and do it, because I know that when I get up and do it, she's going to ask me to do it, and she's going to be nice about it, and she's going to appreciate me for it. Usually when women are mad at men for sitting on the couch, if she asks for help, she's like, well, he should help. He should be doing it. He's not doing it enough. What man wants to do that job? So it is a big problem. That's why I've written this book, and I have a solution, but I'll give you kind of an outline, is that before you even think about getting him off the couch, you need to think about getting him into bed. Romance is the number one thing that will bring both men and women back to that connection where they had plenty of energy to love and support each other. And then once you have romance, then you start working on better communication, so where he starts to really understand what she's going through. The problem is when women talk, they usually talk in ways that put men to sleep, or men don't understand what men are supposed to do. So then, once again, he doesn't really know what's going on in her life, and when she does talk about things, he'll tell her she shouldn't worry about it, like we talked about before.
Right.
And so he doesn't realize why she's under distress. So this is not just a push a button and he's going to get fixed, but the first step she can learn is to recognize that he's doing what he needs to do, just as she feels she's doing what she needs to do, and not to resent him for that. And then to start learning how to ask for his support. But as I mentioned, you can ask for support, but if somebody doesn't have the energy, then they're just going to be as exhausted and overwhelmed as you, and you're going to have two unhappy people. So the key is to bring the romance back.